Welcome, everyone. This is a special event that you've all come to today. And I welcome you on behalf of Inner Climate Academy today for this session honoring the Remembrance Day for Lost Species. It was yesterday, the Remembrance Day for Lost Species, and there are events all across the world, all through this week that are happening in honor and in remembrance of the species that seem to be saying goodbye to us the one last time. This is the second time that we are holding space for this. We had a session last year as well on the 30th of November. Then the reason that we keep doing this every year, and I hope that we do it again next year, is that it seems to pass us by, and that we don't really stop for a second to really take in what does it mean for us. For us, they may be passing and they may have other things and other lives and other realms that may or may not be happening, or they're going back to the earth and coming back in different forms. But what does this mean for us who are alive at this point in time? This is the question that's alive for me and alive for us at ICA. And this is what I'm holding when I have invited Minket and Alyen today for the storytelling session, because that's what they're speaking to as well. That loss, what does that loss mean for us, for communities, and do we really exist in separation to other living beings? So, without much ado, welcome Minket and Alyen. I'm just going to read a small introduction to them. The Minket Lepcha has been engaged with documenting stories and folklore based on ethnic communities of Darjeeling and Sikkim for years. She got an opportunity to direct a film on River Teesta and trace the river from the source till the river leaves the mountain. Having always been inspired by Lepcha folklore and believing that the ecological wisdom are hidden in these stories, she creates workshops based on the folklore of Himalayan communities. She uses this workshop tool to inspire, influence, and educate young minds to connect with the river and mountains and provide an experiential learning towards their surrounding rivers and mountains. She's been traveling, narrating stories of river, seeds, birds, mystical creatures to school and college students across India and Nepal. And here she is today with us. Welcome, Minket. And Alyen. Alyen Foning is an artist and an independent researcher who uses her art medium to connect with her ancestral roots. She's a textile artist who has studied textile and apparel design. Her works are inspired by nature and indigenous world cultures. She's the creator of the installation, The Story of Moon, which was exhibited at the Oh So Many Feminism Conclave by Godrej India Culture Lab. She feels deeply for fabrics, colors, collaboration with people, art, crafts, design, and music in all forms. She's currently learning about her ancestral roots and shamanism through various research and art projects, and is in the process of starting her training under a shaman of the Lepcha tribe. Welcome, Alyen. Minket and Alyen, it is an honor to have you here with us today. And now I pass on to you.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for giving us such a wonderful opportunity, especially as two women from the same tribe. It gives us great honor. So this is going to be a very long journey for now. At least 2 hours might sound like 2 lifetimes, but I'm just going to begin with a flute sound, pantong palit. The Lepchas, we play a flute which has 4 holes, and whenever we play this flute, we are basically we kind of call the deities of the mountains and the forests. And just like greeting a guest in your home, this is like a flute which allows people to kind of just come into this whole sacred circle of listening to the story from your heart and not your head. And while I do this, I would request, if you can, probably close your eyes and just be at that moment. And I will also invite Alyen to begin the prayer whenever she feels comfortable. And then from there onwards, I will probably take you to the another journey of my stories. So just I wanted to just play a record, play a song, and I think I'll just share a screen. No, Lakshmi. I think yeah, this is good. And while I'm doing this, I would urge it would be really nice if you can just close your eyes. I think the journey inside can be really wonderful. So if you feel comfortable, yeah. So here we go.
Dear guardian beings of these lands, we pray to our ancestors, to Mother Earth and all of love and light to be with us today, to hold sacred space. We ask for your protection, we ask for your guidance, and we ask that you show us the way. May we be vessels of your love, of your messages, and of all that needs to be said today. Please bless us and guide us and help us reconnect to all the energies of the earth, of all our friends and family and our brothers and sisters that we have lost. May we connect together as a collective through our hearts and to the earth, the ancestors and all of love and light and Creator, Mother Earth. Please show us the way. Please show us the way. We are grateful and we ask of you to hold this space with love. We thank you with all of our hearts and our souls. Thank you.
Can you hear the sound? I just wanted to be yeah, because I
Yes.
think Alien, you were not audible. So though the prayer is in our heart, but I just wanted to make sure that you all can hear me. Can you hear me now? Is it clear enough? All right. So thank you, Alien, for this such a beautiful prayer. And just to give you a very short introduction about myself, how I came about knowing about journey, about stories, and the importance of stories was also mostly because I think we have stopped listening from our heart. And though I made a film on River Teesta, it was a very, uh, we have also become consumers of visual consumption a lot. And because of that, we have forgotten how to listen from our heart and listen and see from our heart. So I think the storytelling is something which, especially coming from indigenous community across Himalaya, our orality is very important for us to exist. And what happens is when we lose on our orality and comes into more of reading and writing, the whole essence, the sense of all that we come from disappears. So that's how the journey of my storytelling also began. And I just wanted to tell you that the folklore that we all have, I'm sure all of us have in our communities, has been told from a very long time. It is not a story which was made in a day or a year or few years ago, but it has been told by our shamans, it has been told and retold by our women, by our elders, by our mothers and aunts. So these stories have a lot of importance, especially with our ecosystem and the nature that we live in. So I think inspired by this, I really get inspired by the lecture story folklore is because it's closest and that's the most honest space that I can come from, and find a way to kind of have a new perception of these stories, because among our youth we have a fear culture of retelling those stories. So this is also one step forward to have the intention of creating this interdependence and reimagining interdependence from the intention of pure love for the ecosystem. So I will now take you to this beautiful story about a princess, and this particular story is often called Pandi Sangyen. It means the princess story, and it has a beautiful, this whole idea of how we are interdependent with other communities and how that is how the culture is formed, the food that we eat, the dresses that we wear is all a part of this ecosystem where we are connected and related to one another. So I will just quickly, because I want to kind of really bring in the flute as one of my uh, like this friend who takes me to this, helps me tell the story and just play it along, because I think the sharing is not really helping me. And as I do this, I want you to also listen to this whole story with the intention of being a part of the community that we come from. And we are not existing in isolation. We all are a part of the ecosystem. Now, this is the story about the times when the Kongchen Chu, our guardian deity, was as small as a musketeer's tooth. It is about the times when the human beings were magical beings. Every tree, right from the stone, the rock, everything were beings, and they had a living being inside them. And these are also about the times when the wind used to speak with the rain and used to come down to these Himalaya as a form of a raindrop. And as it used to fall on these plants, on these flowers, it used to thank for allowing it to blossom. When the rain would fall into the petals, the flower would say, "Thank you, my dear rain. It's because of you I grew into a flower and then a fruit." And as the flower would fall down gently on Mother Earth, the earth used to say, "Thank you, my dear tree and flowers. It's because of you I give birth to so many babies." And the earth used to thank the river, saying that it is because of your river, the water, it quenches my body, it quenches my thirst. And equally, the river used to say, "Thank you, my dear earth. It's because of you I have a shape." It's also about the times when all of us were a part of the Himalaya, right from Kazakhstan to the northeast. It's also about the times when these mountain peaks and the lakes and the small rivulets were all brothers and sisters. If there was a wind blowing from one end, then the same wind would blow on the other side, create storm, rainfall, providing fruits and food to so many beings. It's also about the times when we had rhododendron, which is called guras in Nepali, and this tree, Nepalensis alnus. These trees, these flowers were all medicine, not just for the human beings, but also for the earth, for the soil. The flower petals, even now our elders take it whenever we have a cough. And this tree was a medicine for the earth. When there was a loose soil, when there was a landslide, this tree used to be grown. So all of this were medicine. It's also about the times when the abominable snowman, the glorified Yeti, the monster, was not a monster for us. It was a hunter god. It was a shapeshifter. It used to take different forms. And it used to come down to River Teesta, saying that this is my sister that I have to go to. It's also about the times when the ginger was a brother to Yeti. And whenever beings, animals, human beings would enter the forest. They would pray and pay respect to Yeti because they were going into the uncharted lands and territories. So the reverence was there not just for the human beings, but for also the animals. And as you would further go down, this bird, which is the national bird of Nepal, did not know the boundaries between Nepal and India or even Pakistan. It was a bird, free bird, flying right from these Himalayan mountains that I've spoken about. And this Himalayan monal was so pretty that this beauty kind of really used to adorn the forests. And this Teesta that we talk about, the River Teesta that we come from, it used to flow right from the Kongchen Chu, going to the Bangladesh and to the Bay of Bengal, one spine. And similarly, many rivers used to flow and still flowing. The Himalaya is the birthplace for so many rivers, providing life to many, many human beings and beings. So this was the time when everything was magical. So Pandi, the princess, was not from this place. She was from the, we call it the Kochimeche, but they are from the Assam side. She was very beautiful. And she was so beautiful that most of the kingdoms of those times, right from Bhutan to Sikkim to Assam, all of these kings were very, very, very looking forward to marry this princess because she was so beautiful. The legends have it that if she was to sing, then the butterflies would sit next to it, next to her. The rainbows used to be born. So she was so pretty. And there were so many suitors for her. But there were also times when the king, the father of this princess, was very vigilant because it was about kingdoms. It is about relationship with different territories. And that's why this princess was very confused whom to marry. So she said, if I have to marry somebody, and if you want me to marry somebody, please allow me to get everybody together so that I can choose one person and then I will marry for your happiness. And there was a day which was decided that everyone was supposed to come and everyone was supposed to, find that particular time to meet the princess and decide like whom she wants to marry. And the Lepcha, the king, which was very close to Assam, and so he somehow landed up a night before. And accidentally, he saw the princess saw the king, and they madly fell in love with one another. They were so madly in love, and she was scared of this love. And she said, I really don't know if I, can see you like this because there are so many suitors coming now, and we really have to figure it out. Like my father will be really angry. But the king was like, the lecture king was like, I really don't know what is this feeling that I have for you. But if you get up tomorrow morning and find all these different suitors, and what if you find somebody else more handsome, or more suitable? So is it possible that we run away from this kingdom and you come to my place? And she was like, no, no, I cannot do that. But somehow the story goes like they fled from that place. And in a hurry, all she could carry was 3 seeds. And then she had some jewelries with her and she ran away. So they ran away in that night, and it was just during this place in near the Darjeeling and Siliguri side. There is a place called Sibok Road. So, but in Lepcha, the Sibok means Sibuk. Sibuk means they actually cleared the whole jungle, and they cleared the whole jungle to stay overnight. And then they rested, and they wanted to rest because they were like just fleeing, and it was really long journey. And when they were actually resting, all the kings came to know that these people they have just ran away, and they were just so angry that they started following them. And by chance, this couple, the newly not wedded but new couple, was like really worried, and oh my god, we have to run away because they were all coming with all the knives and the swords, and they really wanted to burn that place. And that's the time she just left all the jewelries and then she just ran hurriedly up in the mountains of Sikkim and Darjeeling. And all she had was these three seeds, no jewelries. Now, if you see a young wedded girl in a very different place, with no language, with no knowledge, she was so lonely, though she loved this person that she had married. But then she missed her father, she missed her mother, she missed her family, she missed the food. And that's the time when she asked the help of the river Teesta. The river was going down, and those times the river was ferocious. It used to just move around with so many waves, and people would be scared to even cross the river, very scared. And that's the time when she just went by this side. This place is called Coronation Bridge, but it is also Kali Jora, we call it. And in this place, local call it Nindrepani in Nepali. It means the sleepy river. And then she just told the river, "Hey, can you just flow slowly here?" And because Tista was ferocious, very ferocious river, said, "Can you just slow down here? Can you please listen to me?" And that's the time, because she was crying, she was full of pain, she was full of misery for having to move away from her family. And she just said, "The river, I need to tell you something. Please calm down." And this is the point where the story has it, that the river actually calmed down and then listened to what the princess had to say. And as the river calmed down, the river the river was just trying to listen. And she started crying. The princess cried for a very long time. And then she went on to say, "My dear River Teesta, can you please tell my mother that I miss her? Can you also tell her that I did not want to hurt her, neither my father. I really loved this man, but I also loved them. And can you please tell her that I really miss her a lot and I love her?" And then as the river was listening, listening and listening, if you see this kind of shimmer, the river was like this. And then that is a time when she just said, like, in hurry, I left all the jewelries in Sibuk, or Suffolk, they call it. And all I have is these three seeds. One is pumpkin seed, Tungutli in Lepcha. Another one is Kunchungli, which is the maize. And we have cucumber seed, Saretli. I just have these three seeds, and I just don't know when to grow this, because I miss my food also. I just don't know when to grow this. So could you please ask my mother, when do I have to grow this? Because this is the only wealth I have now. And the river listened to it for a very long time. And sometimes it's also like, the river has always been a friend to many of us. So this news slowly traveled towards Assam. And as it went towards the downstream, like I said, the river is a transboundary. So it moved towards the other state. And the mother was just doing her stuff, and the river spoke to her. And the river passed on the news to her, talking about how the daughter misses and how, she is like missing the food and the family, and she doesn't know when to grow these seeds. And mother also cried very profusely because she could feel the pain of the child. And she also loved her immensely. And she was also in pain because she couldn't say bye. So she was in a lot of, she really felt happy to get the news from the river. But as you know, the river cannot flow upwards. So she got the news, but she had to find a messenger. Who is the one who will actually send this message to her daughter? So she found Karnakfo, a bird or a crane, and it is a demoiselle crane. So this crane has its peculiarity because it always flows in this V-shaped formation. And often, because of this V-shaped formation, people know like this crane means the change of the season. And the kind of sound that it makes is karang kurung. So Karnakfo is told by Lepcha people, but karang kurunge is the common bird's name in this region. And elders know that, oh, there's this bird coming now, it's time to sow this, cucumber seed, pumpkin seed, the maize. So this is how the season has come. And so the mother said, my dear Karnakfo, why don't you go upwards? When you're going upwards, I know you've come a long way. So when you're going upwards, can you please tell my daughter that I love her, that I also miss her, and I want her to be very much independent, because when you have the seeds, that means you can have your own food. So please tell her that whenever you pass by, you're supposed to sow the seed. And that's how people still sow the seed whenever they see this, demoser grain. And this is how the whole, root of this bird is, because it comes right from, the China, and then it moves downwards, passes Himalaya, and then goes back to Kazakhstan, and then goes back to this lake that you see in the picture. So it takes the longest route. And the peculiarity of this, crane is it flies for such a long time that all it uses is the sand and the stone to eat along the way. And it doesn't rest. And the beauty of this bird is there is no one leader. So whenever they are tired, the first one giving the direction probably goes backwards, and another one takes the lead. So the leadership is very united. Everyone is a leader here. And they wait. If there is a child, if there is a small or weak bird who's not willing to fly, they will wait for them. And together they fly. So this peculiarity of this bird was so amazing that when the bird flies together, this princess also started sowing the seeds of that time. And till now, people, especially in Kalimpong, because Darjeeling is full of tea gardens now, there is hardly any land to grow anything, but Kalimpong still has lands, and the elders grow cucumber, maize, and pumpkin seeds till now, for a couple of years ago. But the reason now, what's happening with these stories is, like, there is this big dam which has come, the Teesta that you see, another one. So the flow of the river has changed. Once a sleepy river in Kalijora has become a sleepy river across with more than 40 dams. And the river is almost like, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's sleeping for a very long time. There's only one stretch upstream in Zonggu, North Sikkim, which has a free-flowing river, and the people are actually voicing out very openly about it. And because of these dams, almost 34, I think, 40 dams in 314 kilometers, the folklore that I've spoken about is almost like it never existed. You will not realize how the river has changed. And this is what the whole situation of the river is. But it's also to tell you the golden masir, which used to be it's a very big riverine fish, freshwater fish. It used to come down from Bangladesh right up in the mountains of Himalaya to give birth to babies, because they used to feel that this pure water from the Himalaya is the right water for our babies to be born. But because of these dams, and there's no laddering, fish laddering, they don't know like how to come up. And it's an endangered species, the golden masir. We also have the mosel crane, or karankuringe, which doesn't come to our mountains anymore, because with this dead river, or almost sleepy river, the wind patterns have changed. And this is how the folklore, along with the folklore, the ecosystem, through the folklore, we know what is the river was like. But now it's a very different scenario. But this is how I would probably end the story of this particular Pandi Samyen. And also like to let you know that this folklore talks about Yeti, talks about Dimosel crane, talks about a golden masir, talks about 3 different kinds of seeds. So these are all blueprints of our ecosystem, which I think if we can conserve it, we can retell the story, because documenting is not enough. I think that's how we can live as a living culture. So yeah, this is what I have, and I'm sure Alien has some beautiful, journey to say, because this is a folklore that I wanted to share. So over to you, Alien.
So we had a situation with my laptop. So Minket will be sharing screen for me, but I'll just kind of do like an introduction. So my name is Alyen Foning, and Alyen means the shoot of a plant. And I didn't realize that it meant so much to me till much later in my life, because I was very I've been raised like my dad worked in the bank, so we kept moving from city to city most of my life. But what kept me grounded and rooted were these stories that I'd hear from him, from my family when we visited during what do you call it, summer vacations. So that's how I stayed rooted with my family. And what I'd like to share right now is, with the first screens that we'll share, is this textile story, like an illustration, textile art, that the theme was um, the five elements and women and work. So that just kind of was like a starting point for me. And I thought of the elements and I thought of how we used to be in tune with nature before, like our ancestors used to be, because um, you'll see as the screens will come. But that was the base of this story, and it's about a person. It's me reflecting, but I feel this is so many of us in today's world, where we're living in cities, and we've kind of had to leave home for jobs, for education, and things like that. So here you have the story called Mai Liang. Mai Liang, can you go back, make it? Mai Liang means the land of hidden paradise. So the Lepcha lands are known as the land of hidden paradise. So here in this frame, you can see this girl crying, saying, it says home. I think of home. It seems like lifetimes away. I carry memories of it on my body, images of it projected onto my work, constantly reminding me of something I don't seem to remember anymore. If you notice, there'll be a pattern in the frames. The first frame is how the elements kind of manifest in my own being. The second is like the work that I do. And the third is how our ancestors interacted with that element. So you see earth here, and like I'm very tattooed. And so I have a lot of tattoos that I have, which are like reminding me of the earth and the elements and our ancestors. And all the work that I did was always inspired by nature and flowers and bark and mushrooms and insects and birds. So it always manifested in my work. And how our ancestors would do is they would be directly in touch with nature, and be growing, planting, using wood, making tools and things like that. As you can see, it's just me interacting with the wind and these seeds that are from trees, that are kind of especially the circular one, that's kind of it moves around and it falls with the help of the wind. And then there are stories of how the first bamboo was the flute was made. Is, when you have bamboo groves, and say a bamboo has a hole in it, then when the wind passes through that hole, then it would create a sound. And that's how humans figured how to make flutes, and the sound of the wind and the flute, that's how it kind of emerged. I traveled farther away, created images of it some more. In my quest to find meaning and purpose, I strayed from the way back home. So this speaks of a time. I have the exact tattoo on my leg. And I moved to Goa because I lived in the city and I wanted to kind of slow down and be connected to nature. Though the call for me was to return home, but I chose to go to Goa instead. So those are lamps that I used to make, jellyfish lamps. And in the olden times, if you see, big bamboos hollowed out were used to carry water. So that's how they interacted with water. And then this is about like a heartbreak. I lost myself completely, broke everything I've known. I didn't remember what I was looking for, sank deeper than ever before. So fire as passion and heartbreak in the beginning, fire as passion and singing, but fire that kind of united a community where they ate together, sang together, danced around the fire. So fire can be so many different things. And you can see personally how it was, and in the community how fire was used. Slowly, I picked up the pieces, tried connecting to the source, searched for the wisdom of my ancestors, began looking with the eyes of a newborn. So, what happened in the previous frame was a nervous breakdown. Being so disconnected from myself, from my heart, from my calling, from my land, that it led to a nervous breakdown, like a psychotic breakdown. But that kind of brought me back, shook everything so that it could be kind of resettled, realigned, rebuilt. And then somehow the call of my ancestors and the lands and water of my ancestors was so strong that I began to kind of connect to them and find where I was from. So I finally listened to the call of my Alyen and my ancestors, to the voice inside my soul. Though things were not the same anymore, I still made my way back home, but it was different. You can see the trees, you can see the dams, but my Alyen was calling me and I had to come back home. The journey has been unforgiving and long, but I am here now. I pray with faith to bloom, to finally sing my soul song, and humbly stand in my truth. In Mailang, the land Itbumu, which means Mother Creator, created for my ancestors, I found home, and I realized I was carrying it within all along. So, this is just a story to kind of show about this struggle that we have when we're so far away from where we're from our roots, from the connection to nature, that at some point in our lives, it may come as a small whisper, but sometimes it comes as a big kind of a shaking up. And that was the journey that I kind of took. So, which then started like another journey for me. And I've been very blessed because I think the universe, ancestors, however you may believe it, they always kind of point me to the next thing. So, the next thing came in the form of a grant. And again, I have to mention, Zuban was the first one. The story was also published in a book called Centerpiece, an anthology, and it's like a collective work of many women from the Northeast. And in this case, there was this grant, and the thing was about the topic was about women's histories. So since I had this nervous breakdown, and then I realized that I come from a lineage of shamans, and that there was a certain calling that was coming to me very strongly. So I started kind of I begun looking for where I come from. What is this connection we have to the earth? Who are the shamans? So these frames now that you will see, I'll do in short because the main story is about the river. So we're going to get to that, but I'll quickly like kind of breeze through this. So madness, a doorway. I say so because when an awakening happens in a shaman, there are many ways in which it could happen, and one of them being madness. So one of the symptoms, or is called the shaman sickness, is madness, is kind of the crumbling of all that you know, so that you can kind of align to. I could kind of align to this other world. So this is a being that opened the door to that for me, to these other worlds. But yeah, through madness. It's a long story. I wish I could say it, but there'll be another time for that. So then the first thing I asked is, who are we Lepchas? Where do we come from? So what is said is that our bones are made of rocks and trees. Our flesh is made of mud. The blood in our veins comes from waters. Our breath comes from the winds. And the heat of our body comes from the sun and the moon. And when we die, our bones return to rocks and trees. Our flesh returns to mud. Our blood returns to the waters, and our breath back to the winds. And the heat of our bodies returns to the sun and the moon. We are made of earth, and we return to the earth. That is the Lepcha creation story, and that kind of already explains how we as a tribe are so deeply connected to nature. And that is something I would like to share with everyone, because that is something we've forgotten so deeply, that it's nice to be able to share these stories so that we can remember, because this is also about remembrance, or not only remembering all our brothers and sisters who've who are vanishing, or our deities, our water deities, mountains are being destroyed, but it's also about how we're connected to them, how deeply we're connected to them. So then I started asking who is the first moon and the first bungting, which is the female shaman is a moon, but sometimes a male shaman can also be a moon, and bungting is a male shaman. So in very short, basically this monster, this demon, he came along and everything was peaceful before that time. And he began to devour humans and eat them and take their souls away. So what happened is that there was imbalance created, and for the greed of one being, so many beings were being killed. So I also look at it in this way. When we look at our human greed and the things that we do that harm other souls, whether it's the soul of a tree, whether it's the river, whether it's the mountain. So it's that kind of a thing. This balance was created. So the gods then created the first male and the female shaman, and basically they managed to defeat this demon. But what they did is when they were created, they were like celestial beings, supernatural beings, but then they vowed and made a promise to come back in every life in human form to serve Mother Earth and to serve her kingdom and to help humans. So, which is why we have these cycles of shamans that keep repeating because they have made an oath to keep coming back to serve and be here with love. So this is specifically about the female shamans. There are many kinds of female shamans, but this specific one that I'm showing you today is called the Pildon Mun, which means her specialization is transporting the souls of the deceased to Kongchen Konglo, and so how will you say job of taking the soul from the earthly plane into our, how would you say, sacred like resting place. But the thing that I would like to say here is that there are two bridges. It's a long, beautiful, interesting process, and but we'll get to the point where basically the first bridge into the other world lies in the river Teesta and Rangit. It's Rongyu and Rangit, which is the male river and the female river. And the confluence is where the first bridge is. So she and the male shamans would open a door there and take the soul across. But interesting small tidbit is that the souls sometimes don't know that they're dead. So on the way, she has to keep convincing the soul that he or she has left the world of the living. She would ask him or her to look at the reflection in the water, but then there is no reflection. Or she would ask them to stand on bamboos, and there's no sound and no crackle, or she would ask to perform many, I don't know, she would coax, and kind of try to convince the soul. And finally, when the soul was convinced, then finally their clans would be verified and would be returned to on the lap of their ancestors. The the males would be returned to the patrilineal side of the family, and the females to the matrilineal side of the family. So for now, that's what I would say. But it's important to know that the river is very important for us for this ceremony. This is about. I also did interviews with many moons and bungtings. This is a moon who's the one who saved me in Goa. Surprisingly, I found her. We found each other in Goa, and she helped me on my path. It's the universe's plan. And what I put her here because she's an unconventional moon. She lived in the city. She's moved back. But here, what I would like to show is that how, whether she is in the city or whether she is in the village or in the forest, she embodies Mother Earth and the energies of Mother Earth and our ancestors. So wherever she goes, she has this within her, and one of her roles, important roles, is to usually find the ones who are supposed to be on the path and have lost their way. So she found me when I had lost my way and helped me kind of accept who I am and on my journey. Though she's not someone who'll hold your hand and do it. She will just show you different options and teach you. But like that's only at the beginning, and then after a point, she holds your hand to a point, and then she leaves it. So basically, her name is Mimi,
and she's been my savior, my friend, my aunt, my teacher, all sister, all kinds of things. What is the next one, Minkit? Because it's slow. Okay. The
Yeah,
Pildon
I think
Mun.
it's Pildon Moon.
Okay, Pildon Mun in Tugong is a place called Tugong, and I met her. So this is for me to tell you that there are many people who receive the gift these days, but a lot of them do not want to accept the gift because one, people think you're mad. Two, you don't know what the hell is happening because there's so many things you're seeing and feeling and sensing and all these uh, energies and the shaking and all kinds of confusion. So she didn't want to accept her gift, though she comes from a lineage of shamans. She has 4 or 5 before her and another 2 below her. So, and also she was a mother of 2 children. So she was worried how she would be able to balance being a shaman and being a mother and a wife. But finally, she accepted. She tried to, there's something known as cutting the path. So she tried with her brother, who was also a shaman, to cut the path by making offerings and, doing rituals. But the brother had warned her that since this is Mother Earth's and your calling, we cannot actually do that. We can hold it for some time, but we cannot really cut the path. And this is such a dangerous thing because you're going against the will of nature, that something bad could happen to either you or me. And surely enough, he passed away 49 days after he did the ceremony. But then that was kind of a wake up call for her to say that, okay, I will accept my path. And since then, she has, and she's the only one of the moons I've met who do not do animal sacrifice. She's like a vegetarian moon, and she offers flowers and fruits and things like that. And I think it's, yeah, an old new world. So when one moon dies, another one is born. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that we have come at a time when now most people do not believe in shamanism and moons and visions and plant medicine and all this magic, as you say, realm. But which is why there are people like me that have come, that have become like the bridge between the old and the new. The essence is old, but the form in which the work is done, or the prayers are done, or the ceremonies are done, are taking a new form, because it is time for us to kind of adapt also to the changes that are there. So what I say, an old new world is the essence of the old, but in a new form, whether it speaks through art, through stories, whether it speaks through dance, poetry, writing, prayers of a different kind. So that is what is happening right now. And many times it is received with a lot of how would you say, resistance, because it's not the form that it used to be. But we're adapting and we're growing more and more each day, and that brings hope and love and joy to be able to do that. So the inner panels of the installation was something else happening on the inside. So when you have an inner world and an outer world, something else you can see on the outside, but a lot is happening on the inside or in unseen realms. So these are the frames that are in the inside. I won't explain so much, but yeah, these are the inner worlds. I was called to share these frames in this way because, one, the disconnection we feel being in cities, for example, and it's a funny thing. I saw this video today where this elder was sharing how people live in cities, they don't see sunrise. It's a strange thing, when it's happening, but you don't see the sun or sunrise, or you don't know if it's full moon, new moon, then you forget so many things because your alignment is completely kind of disturbed. So that disconnection is an important thing for us to look at these times. And it also creates so much imbalance within, because we as human beings were tuned to cycles of nature, of being in tune with the timings of nature, sunrise, sunset, rains, heat, cold, and now we have lost our compass in a way. So I think it's important to understand and kind of acknowledge this disconnection and also this longing inside that we may have, which I think we all have, of home within and outside. And the second part about the moons was to show you how even Muns, the tribe used to be connected to nature, but Muns and Bungtings especially because they are, um, how would you say, they are in service, so we have a deep connection to nature, and it's kind of our responsibility to be able to, in whichever way we can, serve through prayers, through remembering, through activism sometimes, so there are very many forms in which we can do this. So then we come to the next phase where basically I started getting visions of this water dragon, maybe now 15, 12, 13, 15 years ago. And I used to sketch them all the time, but I never understood really why I was sketching them. And I just thought, okay, water dragons. So as I begun to kind of accept my path and accept my, how do you say, contract and oath, then it slowly started getting a little clearer. What happened is that I'll read it out now. From a deep whirlpool within, a water dragon rises steadily, reaching in and emerging gently, flowing. I hope you will see and feel the dragons as I do. For 10 years now, the water dragon has spoken to me, and I paid no heed. I didn't listen. I still do not understand, but I feel ready now. She flows lovingly with immense strength and wisdom, carrying tenderness, love, and nourishment, and countless lifetimes of experiences and stories. She asks me to let her love and heal me and help her tell the stories she carries within her. She encourages me to speak and asks all of us to connect with her again. May we invoke and remember her once more. May we surrender and accept her wisdom and nourishment. May we let her love us. So it is. So this is Kongchen Konglo. And what we will be doing is that we will be tracing the journey of, how would you say, of lepchas and of the mountain and the rivers in a cycle. So this is Kongchen Konglo, which is where the dragon also originates from. And this is our sacred mountain, which is Kanchenjunga. It's a sacred mountain, the place of our creation, the place where our water comes from, the place where we go to after we die. So it begins, you see on the right corner, there's ice origin. So this, I wanted to show, this illustration shows how when we are born, we're known, humans were born, the pure white snows of Kanchenjunga was supposedly the material that was used to create the first humans. And over here, we show our ancestors here because one thing we have in our tribe is each clan has their sacred peak, their sacred lake, and their sacred cave. The peaks have masculine energy and the lakes have feminine energy, and the caves are the origins of our clans. So we're connected to Kongchen Konglo, and even in death, because we return here back to the mountains, to our ancestors, even in death, we are connected to Kongchen Konglo. So what happens is as the snow starts melting, the waters kind of split into two parts, okay? One is a male river and one is a female river. Rongit being the male river and Rongnu being the female river. And they make their way downwards towards the plains. What happens is there's like a long story here, but let me begin with, so I do go to the confluence of the two rivers and I sit with my friends and my family who are also very connected to nature. And we sit there and make offerings and offer prayers. And what I felt there was it feels like a whirlpool where they meet, though it's not a whirlpool. And it was the first time in my life that I have felt something so powerful, so powerful. I cannot explain it to you. It felt, I felt really like tiny, little, like insignificant when I sat at the banks and at the river at that point of time. My ancestors were with me and the rivers were there, and my ancestors introduced me to the rivers, and they said that this is our daughter and she comes here to honor you and to ask for your help. And So I went there, and the dragon was also there, and I was very scared. Okay, one, because the rivers were powerful, so powerful. I felt like if I fall in there, then I'm going to die. And also the dragon was, it's a massive dragon. I can't explain. You'll see later in the screens the scale of it. But and I was scared. But what they did is, when I sat there and prayed to them, they asked me that if you want to grow and if you want to move forward, you have to face your fears, and you have to surrender, and you have to revere us. But I was still scared. I sat there, but I couldn't really do it at that point of time. So when I asked a shaman about the rivers, then he told, like, I will tell a short story. Uh, so the female river is led by a snake, okay, called Parilbu. And there are many names to that. Pumol Bum also they call it. And the male river was led by Tutpo, a bird. So what happens is that the female river is led slowly. So she comes very, very slowly in like these kind of swervy, wavy patterns. And whereas the bird is fast and is like at angles, flying in angles. So the male river reaches before the female river at the point where they said they would meet. And then he keeps waiting for her, and he gets irritated. And then he gets angry, say that she's not coming. I'm going to turn back now. I'm like pissed off. So he turns back. And when he does so, he creates what we call, like, the great flood. And basically, in this, there's a small side story where a bird called Kohumfo helps the Lepchas by warning them of this flood and guides them to this mountain called Mount Tundong, where they're safe when the floods come. Anyway, so the female river reaches, the male river calms down finally and comes and meets her. And then she asks him, Tisata, which means, when did you arrive? So that's how, when they meet and as they go forward, they're known as the Teesta. Tisata is Teesta. So what I would like to point in this point is, at every point, we're connected to the rivers. So when we're born, I found out that our shamans have ceremonies where the child is introduced to the rivers. And so, because the rivers anyway pass on the message to our ancestors and the dragon and all the forest beings, so we're introduced to the rivers, and the rivers know our name, and they know us by looking at us and feeling our energy. So it's important, because at birth also we're connected to the river. And this is a part where basically the water dragon had been hiding for a long time, because we humans were not, how would we say, we'd forgotten about her. She's a female dragon. We'd forgotten about her, and we weren't ready to even, come to the river and spend time there. So she'd been in hiding. But now that connection was getting wider, this connection was getting wider and wider, she decided to surface. She's like, it's time for me to like come back now. I need to, speak. And this is whirlpool union. That's the marriage thing I explained. You can see the snake and the Himalayan monal, the one that guides the male river. And even in marriage, we're connected. Because what happens is, when this whirlpool, is not a literal whirlpool, happens, basically the masculine and feminine rivers and the energies churn. So after the churning, whatever we don't need anymore is sifted through. And finally, when everything that we don't need is sifted through, they become one and travel together. So the shamans would pray that, may your union be like that of the rivers. May it be eternal, and may it be as strong as the rivers. So even in marriage, we're connected to the rivers. This is reflective water life journey. So from the mountains, the dragon is kind of telling the story, because the dragon moves with the rivers. So the thing is that, as the water comes down from the mountains, on the way it meets many beings. It meets animals, plants, trees, forest deities. It meets birds, insects, all kinds of animals and beings. And I say beings because in our tribe and in this universe that we live in, all of these beings exist. So what you see in the frame here is the dam, and the rivers carried stories with them, and all the information about all the animals, plants, trees, the wind, and what has happened now with the dams that you can see is that the flow of these stories have stopped. The we're not connected like we used to, and because of the dams, a lot of the health of all these beings, including the forest beings and deities, is also vanishing. So when we speak of loss, it is not only the loss of the environment and ecology and trees and forests or the animals, birds, we're also talking about a loss of these deities who are there to guard and protect and keep that place in balance, because there are sightings that have been seen where, when tunneling was happening in certain parts, for in I think in Zongu, I'm not very sure the place, but basically they have seen these how would you say, these sparks of light like leaving the place. So the homes of these deities are also being destroyed and they have nowhere to go. So what happens is, say there is a forest deity responsible for a certain forest. If his home is destroyed, then he leaves. But what his job is to do is to maintain the balance of that place and protect everything in his vicinity, in his area, in his domain. And when we do this, not only are we making him leave, but creating so much disbalance now. So it's important for us to reflect on this and acknowledge the kind of devastation and the chain reaction we are creating by doing these things and harming nature. So still water bridges to death. In this is the ceremony that I had spoken to you earlier about the Mun and the Bungthing taking the soul of the departed through the first bridge, which is in the confluence of the Teesta and Rongit, Rongmu and Rongit. So even in death, we are connected to the river. So if we destroy the rivers, then how do we kind of transport the souls of our departed back to our ancestors? And that is very, very a disturbing thing to kind of, think about and see and witness. Raindrops nourishment. So this has a short personal story with it. I hadn't connected to the dragon completely, but then what happened is that I had, in one of my meditations, um, like a vision of being inside a tight cave, and I could see it was very tight. And I walked a little further and I said, keep walking. And I reached a place where it was a little wider, like a wider cave. And I sat there and I meditated and I prayed because it was dark. And then I could hear this beat, this song, and I could hear these voices, and it felt like my ancestors. And there was like, suddenly as the songs began around me and inside my heart, like light flashes of light, almost like party lights, kind of going off in the dark. And then I prayed and I was so scared. I was so scared, but I prayed and these lights grew brighter and brighter and brighter. And I was feeling less scared now. And then as I opened my eyes, I saw before me the dark path where I couldn't even see the exit, were a line of my ancestors that were lit, and they were lighting the way to the other end. And then I wasn't afraid anymore. And I kind of followed them out. And that's when I remembered, suddenly there was this flash in my being. I can't even say head, a flash in my being. And I remembered the dragon. I remembered the dragon. And the dragon, I've known the dragon for the longest time. And that's when I wasn't afraid anymore. And finally, as the rivers kind of meet and they move towards the sea and the oceans, what happens is, I call it the magic of heat and the sun. Then there's evaporation, condensation, and the water returns back again to the mountains. Now we're talking about memories. So the water from the mountains already have their own memory, okay, an ancestral memory, all kinds of memory is carried, and then forest beings and all kinds of deities and animals. So the memory is carried forward, and meeting the humans again on the way, more memory is carried down. Then you meet the sea where there are memories from all over the place and in the ocean. And then finally, all of those memories come back to the mountains again. And what happens is that it is kept in the mountains to be passed on for a time when people are ready to receive this wisdom, these memories. So what is happening now is that the water dragon is carrying these memories to share with you. It is time for us to share these with you. And the water dragon comes here today to share with you the memories of our connection to the rivers, to the all beings, let me just say beings, and to the mountains, to our ancestors, and to each other. So the water dragon is here and is saying, okay, sit with me. Let's try and remember where we come from. So the final one is I visit the confluence again, offer flowers, incense, leaves, and pine and juniper. I sit in meditation and pray for the two rivers, the water dragon, the four sacred directions, our ancestors, and the Mother Creator, seeking their guidance, protection, and blessings. They hold me lovingly and help me connect, receive clarity, and face my struggles. Though I cannot always connect to the water dragon and the rivers, I am learning to listen to them. She is the spirit and voice of waters that flow, born of the pure white snow of Kongchen Chu, Kanchenjunga, one with Rongnu and Rongit, become one as Teesta. Now she is in the womb, waiting, emerging gently to be with us. She carries with her stories and memories of lifetimes. She remembers us, for we come from the same white snows. She always carries us within herself, and she knows that deep within us we carry her too. She asks of us to help her emerge, that we may make space for prayer, for sacred waters to flow freely, so she and the rivers may heal and nourish us again with her stories and songs to remember the oneness. May we connect with them. May we open our hearts and receive their stories with love. May we live in harmony with the laws of nature and honor the sacred circle of life. So it is. Our water dragons are calling us. They remember us. Do we remember them? That's the scale of the dragon. Huh? I was very scared. And with that, we come to the end of the story. Yeah. And this is another installation I made because this water dragon, as she is traveling with the rivers, making the cycles, there's something she emerges from the rivers and the confluence and from the mountains, but she's also coming out from my heart because she has so much to say, and I'm here to speak for her and to speak from all the beings that are here to help us. May we find time to connect with them. May we find time to believe in magic, and may we find time to understand that Mother Earth holds us with love, and it is time for us to love her back and to be aware of what we're doing to her. So this is my request. This is the water dragon's request, to find space and time to reconnect with all of them again. And that begins within, we reconnect within. So spend time with yourself, spend time in nature, talk to your ancestors. You can just talk. You talk to your elders, because all of this knowledge and wisdom is vanishing very rapidly as they're passing away more and more, like each day. So this is a prayer to all and a request to remember once again our interconnectedness, and to remember that we are not different from anything. All of us are the same, and we are one, and that it is time to remember, and it's time to collect, and it's time to share. So we hope that you can do that somewhere, at some point, that you can find the space and the time to do that. We thank you all for being with us today, and for holding beautiful, beautiful space, and for opening your hearts and listening to us, and listening to our ancestors, and to the dragons, and to the rivers and mountains. So we hope and pray that through our journeys, you can see your journey too, and remember once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alien, for such a beautiful journey. I mean, it's so good to be a part of that, and just been seeing you like going through this journey, because I know Alyen since 2012, and I remember meeting her back in Delhi. I was working in an advertising firm. I had like recently quit the advertising firm, and then after that, I was like trying to figure my life myself. And so I had just started beginning to make some t-shirt, and because she's a textile designer, I was like, hey, we want to do something. But the journey has been long for both of us, and we both are growing in our own ways. And there are often times when I ask her, because this journey has been very special for her. I'm really honored to even witness this journey with her. But there have been times when I'm like, she has this visions, and it's such a beautiful, journey to have visions, because I know many of young people are also scared of these visions, and also the tag that comes along. And when she talks about, this things like dragon, how I associate is with this ecological crisis that we all are going through. And there have been many times when she said, I've seen a dragon, I've seen a dragon. And I talk about, because since I've also made a film and there is a chapter on golden masir, and I tell her, I think that's golden masir that you're seeing, So I just wanted to quickly also show you guys the whole state of golden masir, because golden masir is a riverine. Like I said, it's a freshwater fish, but it's one of the endangered, species. It's already called the endangered species. And because of this, there are a lot of, so you can see how big it is. And it's almost, some of them are also told as 10 feet and all. And it was one of those fish which used to actually clean the water also, because it used to move upstream. And how this fish has been endangered because it doesn't have a free flowing river anymore. And it's just not the Teesta River. It is the Himalayan River right in Nepal, in also certain parts of Pakistan. But this fish was a very prominent fish which is endangered. And because we have dammed so many waters and rivers, the lost species that we talk about is something which is happening as we speak. And our inclination towards animals and beings have also been just certain kind, but the whole ecosystem that we work in has so many species that we are not even aware of. And I guess it's time where we just not talk about the environment flow, or not even the flow of the river, but the spiritual flow. And I think Alyen kind of really brings that into the picture with her beautiful art. But yeah, so that's something which we all, both of us, had to share. And for me, just to kind of connect with Alyen, is most of our words, the language that we speak, I don't know my language. I don't know Lepcha language. And that's something which was never a choice. It was by design. I never learned my language because it was never taught to me. Our education system doesn't teach Lepcha language, especially in West Bengal. Alyen is from Kalimpong and I'm from Darjeeling. So we never have this Lepcha as a language. But there's so much of history and there's so much of environmental blueprint in the words that our language has, right from Tisatha to Pansok, or to even that she talked about, the words like we have Tisatha, not just Tisatha, we have so many rivers which begins with R. So there is, if I say Teesta, it is not the name of the river. We will know because it's Rangit and Rongnu. So I think these kind of a taxonomy that the language has brings a lot of environmental knowledge also. So it's time for us also to kind of, not just, of course, it's a very beautiful, journey for all of us to listen, but also be acknowledged as a tribe in the places that we come from, because we are marginalized, and most of our the historical heritage that we talk about is we were some of barely trying to work towards it. And I think these are some where we are trying to say is, since climate crisis is important, since we are going to go through these climate changes, and we talk about only the problems, but I think this history has a solution in itself. It's just to acknowledge not just the stories, but also the tribe that we come from, because most of them, most of the indigenous communities are marginalized as I speak. So this is what we had to share, and I know we're a bit ahead of time, Lakshmi.
I'll
All the
share
viewers,
something.
maybe
I'll
Alden, you
share
can,
something.
yeah.
So
Just a second. So we have some time for a conversation. I know that was we listened to a lot. So, but
Mm.
there is a bit of time for questions if anyone had any. So I'll let Alien speak, and then we can open up for a dialogue if anyone feels like asking questions.
So as Minket speaks like about the tribe and the beings that we can see, I would like to speak for the beings we cannot see. Like
Mm.
I spoke about the water dragon and the forest deities leaving, river deities leaving. Um, there is this one time I visited a place called Gorubatan, and somehow it comes out for me in visions, or I sketch something or draw something, and there came like a two-headed dragon. Dragons, nags are like water body spirits usually. So this two-headed dragon, I call them dragon, but nag, I drew and I wondered what it was, and didn't think much of it. This place where I was is a permaculture place, and I was volunteering there. So what happens is in the morning, like we would go pick up trash as we generally went for a walk. And then I kind of followed my intuitions. I was picking trash, and then I went, something said in my heart, like, go right, go right. So I went right. There's a little stream, and I crossed it, and there was this rock and a little cave in there, and it was the dragon's home, and it was filled with trash, like filled with trash. And like I just was there for the next 2 days after I found the place, so I tried to clean it with help of friends and people like that. But then they promised that they would clean it, because all the trash that's thrown from upstream comes down there. And it's like, imagine your home, there were like diapers and old clothes and crushed, like broken flasks and glass and bottles. And imagine your home being filled with things like that. And so that was a call. And in I'm not scared or ashamed or anything to say this, that these calls are coming from them, for us to be aware of what we're doing to their homes and to our environment, because at the end of the day, that's the water we drink. Not only is it their home, but that's the water we drink. So I just want to put that there, along with the ones that we can see. There are many we can't, and they're the ones who help us maintain balance. So just kind of keep your ears and eyes open for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Alien. I just thank you so much for sharing you and your story, and so candidly talking about all the things that you have gone through to be here with us today to share this story. What was it you said in the beginning? It has not been a forgiving journey, but a courageous one, or something like that. And I really appreciate, because I think we don't share enough of these stories, and it happens all the time, and yet we don't share enough. So I really, really appreciate it. And as you were sharing about the water dragon, what really came to me was this sense of loss that is not mine, not yours, but is in the middle, and it's in the when we dam a river, what's also happening is that we're losing our stories, we're losing our way of finding ourselves. And when you talked about the beings leaving as sparks of light, I could almost feel that they were coming from inside us, that our sparks of light were leaving as the forests were being destroyed. So there is something in the between that is embodied in the beings and the stories, and that held the fabric of life together. And with that, I'm opening the floor for any reflections, comments, questions, anything at all anyone would like. We've got some time. We don't have to fill the time, but because I know maybe my request would also be take some time after this to sit with whatever is coming for you. Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who have commented on the chat, and really thankful for, kind of resonating with what we have said, because I think there are a lot of people on a chat.
There are many comments which, I'm not going to read them out now, but I'll send them to you, Minket and Alyen.
Thank you, Rukmini. I think I met her in Panchgani, so she was also in one of my sessions when I was telling the story of River Teesta. So, yeah. And I feel very sad because our elders are dying and the stories are with them. And I feel a sense of urgency because these stories, if we don't tell, maybe it will not die, but it will take a long of time and struggle to come back. And I think Alin and I, both of us, have gone through our own crises and own journeys to really be here together to tell these stories. And that's where, like, when we don't tell our stories, and I also feel sad because most of us have a colonial education system where we are very proud of speaking in English, but we have lost the way to communicate with our elders. And our elders are actually quite depressed because we don't talk to them anymore. So,
There's also about like the shamans. When we go to shamans to ask about things and learn, they're so happy because they say nobody comes, nobody wants to know anymore. And it's also the
yeah,
rivers. The rivers also speak, and they said nobody comes visits us anymore.
mhm,
So it's nice to be able to go there and kind of say hello, here's some flowers for you.
yeah,
Make time to do
yeah,
that.
yeah. And I think we can just keep talking. If anybody
I know.
nobody's talking, we both can talk.
Can go
I think
on.
because that's also a conversation in itself. But I keep telling Alien also, like the storytelling is just not about listening to the story or from the heart or whatever. But I think we've lost a culture where we used to sit together and listen together, and that was a community in itself. And I think this whole new generation where the whole even the idea of communicating is so difficult. When we ask a question like where are you from, I've seen people being very difficult for them to answer. So I guess these are very important. Community building is very important. Yeah, I think we have Reena. I think you're muted.
Yes. No, I mean, I'm just so touched by Lakshmi, you bringing the stories to us and these beautiful beings, to be sitting with, to listening to Minket and Alin. And for me, I have connected with the rivers since a long time. And I feel the pain of the Narmada being damned and yet alive, with all that energy. I believe she's not dead. And so I connect with that state of the Narmada. And internally, I call myself Reva. And I have moved to Dharamshala now, and I also practice so much gratitude as I sit next to the cards, the rivers that are fresh, flowing, bubbly, finding their path. And yes, I'm very involved in cleaning the rivers here. It's easier to clean the rivers at the source or in the mountains rather than down where there's so much. So thank you for the encouragement and definitely connecting us to the spiritual energy of our elements. Yeah, we connect with that as individuals, but having this shared space to celebrate that, to dip into that, is much more healing and hope, brings me hope. So it's a circle of mourning and celebration for me. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you for coming, Reena. Blessed to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much, Reena. I think what we have done is we've often celebrated together, but not grieved together. We've been grieving all alone, all of us. And I think that's the biggest hollow. That's why we feel lonely inside. And I mean, that's when you cry together, there's so much of release that happens together. And I'm so honored and to see and witness your tears, because
Thank
it's
you,
an
Lord.
honor. Thank you.
I just want to add, it's also flow.
Yes.
Supriya, you have your hand up.
Thank you for the beautiful session. Actually, I didn't feel like talking after listening to both of you. So I have typed out my question here, but it may get missed in the conversation. So felt maybe I should just read it out if you have the time. My question is, what is your experience with children? Do they remember these stories? Remember as in remember naturally in their being itself? Because they seem to be the closest to nature. And maybe in some point of time in our typical today's upbringing, are we really taking that memory away from them, which they have naturally in them?
Thank you, Supriya. I think that's something which a major chunk I missed actually in my presentation, and that's why we're a bit ahead of time. But thank you for asking this beautiful question. It's been almost 5 years of me telling stories to children, and one of the reason why I started telling stories to children is because they still had the faculty of wonder, and I felt like I can speak to them. That's the only way I can have a future which kind of at least connects with the nature. And I was actually tired of speaking to elders, frankly speaking, because I mean, I think we are not good listeners anymore. So, children, it's been such a beautiful journey for me. When I speak with children, is because good and I mean, sad also, because some of them have lost the faculty of wonder at a very young age. They've started looking for logic. There are often times when I speak about Yeti and magical creature. Many of them, I mean, one kid said, "Oh, magic is bad," and that was such a. It hit me, It hit me, and I had to, at that moment, had to find an answer which had to be answered. And I said, magic is like a pen. You can write a good word or a bad word out of it. But when the magic has been associated with bad, that takes away the wonder. And there are a lot of kids who has told me, like, how can you prove Yeti is there? How can you prove that? And there were times in the storytelling session, I could see some of the kids actually trying to prove the the knowledge, or I wouldn't say knowledge, but the scientific knowledge of Yeti. I've found the skull and found the hair, and I just looked at them almost with tears in my eyes, because uh, that's what our education has done to us. I mean, frankly speaking, we've always been asked to look for logic. And so these Yeti, when I said it's a shapeshifter for them, it's a very, very, very new thing, those things that we talk about. But I think when we talk about the river stories, I often tell River Teesta story, and I also kind of begin by asking, which river do you come from? Is also kind of a question that we need to ask ourselves, because we've always been associated with the land and the geography. The river from here to here becomes Ganga, and when it crosses to Bangladesh, it becomes something else. So that kind of transboundary connection, how children has found it is like they never have boundaries in their head. It is we create by the time they get old. So one anecdote that I can briefly tell is, when I was in Nepal, in Pokhara, and I was telling a story about Tista, and usually I tell children, okay, make your own story. And this guy had this beautiful picture of Teesta flowing into Nepal and then going into different three springs. And then he said, Miss, I think, in my story, I want the River Teesta to come to Nepal because our Bagmati and Bishnumati is really dirty. And I really feel that this river should come to our side. And not only that, he drew three springs, and I was so touched by this story because I find a lot of wisdom in children. And as I'm speaking with them, I'm also learning so many things. And with that humility, I was so encouraged. So when I went to Nepal for the second time, and unfortunately, I was locked down. Fortunately, also in Nepal for almost 1.5 years, and I was made to do I had got a grant to work on the river because I usually work on the river, and that boy's story really made me feel like this is my time to contribute to that river that he talked about. So that's how I traced the old water resources of Bodha, which is and started working on small rivulets and created an article. So these are different inspirational stories which children have given, and they've also have Yeti not as a monster but a helping, being. And just so I would quickly wanted to share because that question I could see it. So I do like this kind of a workshop. So all you can see in these pictures are all Yeti in different forms, and they have made a mask. And so it was in one of the shelter homes, and all of them are beautiful, I think, example of Yeti that they can be. Some of them are funny, some of them are. So this is how the children have been really processing the stories. And but I also realized I had done a storytelling in Yamuna in Delhi on my birthday a couple of years back. And those slum kids actually don't even know what environment is, frankly. Because as I was telling the story, the river started rising and we had to flee. So I think it's a privilege to listen to a story. It's a privilege to actually be having a time to even process the story. But there are a lot of communities. Just to sit and listen is not even a privilege. So I feel sad for those kids who has never got an opportunity to listen to the stories and even learn anything from it. So yeah, this is some of the anecdotes. I can go on and on. So sorry about that.
I have something to add to that. You say children are closer to nature, most definitely. But I believe that within us is like this deep primal memory. We also, if we spend time, we can tap into that. So look at me with my finger. Tap into that, please. We have it. We remember. We remember. We just need to have time and space and kind of connect to ourselves, and it'll switch on, most definitely.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to speak for Supriya, but she definitely has been on her journey of connecting. So there are a lot more comments on the chat.
Yeah. I also feel like try to get your children to spend more time with the elders, because I think, especially in India, I would say some of our elders still have the stories, and the memories become a very important part for the younger generation to be the thread for the future. And also, like, some stories of these, the folk tales has so much of wisdom to this. So I feel like that's very important for the younger generation. I mean, even if, we all are young at heart, so try your best to spend some time with the elders. I get this feeling that they feel lonely too, because we're so used to with phones and too much of visual culture that's coming up. So
Thank you, Minket. So I would really recommend that if you have the luxury of time after this, do spend some time with yourself. Let the story sit and do what it does. Give it a little bit of time. For the Indians, have dinner, and maybe you'll be visited by the water dragon in your dreams. Who knows? Be open. And maybe it's not the water dragon, maybe it's someone else. So sorry, I'm not pronouncing your name right, but you have your hand up.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hello. I really want to thank Alyen and Minket for sharing the experience and the way you have compiled it all together and presented. It was extremely beautiful because today itself, also, as I was near the Yamuna Ghats in Delhi, there was this very reconciliation that happens within myself of a place which I was very fond of, which is the river near my home in Sikkim itself. So, and the same river here, because what connects both is that there is water, and as children, we grow with I have extreme fond memories with water in itself, you know. There's also this part of when you mentioned of how stories are slowly slipping away from our hands as our elders pass away. This has been there for such a long time in me as well, because when a realization of self comes onto like finding who I am and what I am, you know, in this uh, culturally western coated world that we aspire and our systems are aspiring us to be. So you know, it's only while tapping onto the roots that it actually, you feel like it's a starting point of where I know myself, because in many ways growing up hills, it's a bit slower there, you know how you grow up. So you come together with your grandparents, you meet elder people, you grow up with folk music and folk song and of that sort. So I felt like right now also, while we are in college, you know, I'm in my first year in college. So it's like there is this deep sense of urgency inside. Like I really want to talk to my elders and I want to talk to the, but also the system is such that I can't do it in the expense of my studies, you know, which is already being there in like urban area, urban situation, like Delhi, and the Himalayas in Delhi are so different. But what connects us are like these small points of like water bodies, you know, because these water bodies and what these water bodies, the people living near these water bodies, the lives are always intertwined, and life. There cannot be life without the river, you know, in that sense also. Even my tribe, Rai tribe, which are the Kirat tribe, having immense history with lakes and mountains and shamanism. So I feel extremely humbled, proud, and I'm extremely grateful to you, Alyen Minket, that you opened this conversation, brought in more room for self inquiry into this way of doing, and later on have given me food for thought regarding my own art practices. So I just wanted to say I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you for sharing. What I feel is, even I was in the city most of my life. One thing I could suggest to you, and it helps, is that when you go for holidays, meet one, meet two. It always begins like that, you know, and then slowly kind of you figure your way, you know, paths open up. So even little time is always good, you know, whether it's just your grandparents also, ask them stories, ask them about, I don't know, so many things to ask them about. So it doesn't have to always be, you know, the bigger picture. Start small and then you grow.
Yeah. Sewaru.
Giovanni.
Or is it Sewanne? I think it's
Giovanni.
Sewanne. Sorry. I think what I feel, especially for the younger generation, is there's so much about climate crisis and the depressive, atmosphere that goes on to the younger generation. I would really urge. In fact, it's very important that we come from the space of love, because we all are one. We Kirati or Lepcha or whatever we call it ourselves, we all are one. We are the if I am the daughter of Kongchen Chu, then I am the granddaughter of Himalaya. That's what I keep telling. So we all are together in it, and it's very important to find a solidarity and brotherhood or riverhood, anything that we talk about it. So come from the space of love. If you come heal yourself. It's very important to heal. Healing is not a stagnant thing, but the process of healing and coming from the space of love, because these ancestor stories also has a lot of trauma. It's not always about love. We have a lot of ancestral trauma. So it's very important, if we are the vessel to tell the stories of our ancestors, that we heal first, that we try to sort it out what is us first, and then move on, because we cannot afford to have any toxicity for the future generation, especially the trauma. We cannot transfer the trauma. And that's very important for us as Himalayan communities to see each other as brothers and sisters and not different. And, and kind of regard the stories and the histories with equal respect and not see each other as different. But yes, that's something I really wanted to say. So I think Lakshmi, also, like, if we kind of also probably, I would love to do a little bit of meditation since we have a little bit of time. But anyone who wants to speak can also, we'll wait for some time. And Alyen, if you call for it, you can always just put the mic near your mouth, because I think that's something which we really need your voice if you feel like it. But also, since we are moving towards the end of the circle, the sacred circle, and sometimes it's not even the voice that needs to come out, it's the feeling that must be coming out of you, which we equally respect. So like I said, the flute is always like inviting the guardians or the sacredness into the circle. And since we will be moving towards out of the circle, I will again play the Pantong Palit wish fulfilling song, the sound. And I wish and pray that while we are in this meditation or in this sound, imagine all of yourself to be a vessel, because we all come with our own identities in whatever way, but the vessel processes it. So imagine or think that you're a vessel without a name, without a gender, without anything that probably the past, whatever that you've been feeling in your body, because the body remembers so many things. Whenever you breathe out, just take it out. And whenever you're breathing in, try to bring in the love that our ancestors have been giving us for a very long time. And as you do that, also remember that you are a creator of God, and that you are equally loved, you're equally regarded, you are revered as a vessel. And because of this vessel, you can make so many good things and bad things out of it. But remember, you are the vessel of love. So please, as I play this flute, settle yourself. You may close your eyes and bring yourself into this whole feeling of the vessel that you are and nothing else. And whenever you call for it, you may pray, or, in your heart, while Alyen will also channel if she wants to. And we'll bid our ancestors goodbye, and also take permission to be healed and pay respect for them being with us. Just breathe in and breathe out. Just breathe in and take good things. And when you breathe out, take out everything that your body has been holding for such a long time. The pain, the sorrow, the hurt. Pray for all the lost species. Pray for all the deities who have left the mountains, the rivers, the trees. May you be the channel of love.
We come here grateful today that you have held us with love. Today, a seed has been planted in each and every one of us that were here. A seed that will grow and help us remember and help us connect to all that we have been disconnected from. May we remember that we are one. May we remember the knowledge and wisdom of our ancestors, of Mother Earth, and may we remember the wisdom that hides and is hidden in our beings. We pray that this comes from a place of love and grounding and reverence. And as we leave the circle today, we thank you and we ask of you to protect us, guide us, and help us be the vessels and do what we are here to do. We thank you once again, and we ask of you to hold us with love. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. When you feel ready to leave, please do so in silence.